This episode was originally a live conversation recorded at the CEF Founders Conference back in June 2025.
We had about 50% of our hires came directly through employee referrals. And so we hugely incentivize employee referrals. Directly, we paid bonuses, but we also we had this fun sort of system where you get a bonus if we hired someone you referred, but even if someone you referred got an interview, we had this kind of monthly lottery at the all hands, and we had these little takeout boxes, and anyone who'd referred came and took a takeout box and then revealed it in front of the team, and it was anything from an Amazon voucher to a trip to Vegas.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Silvan.
Thank you for having me again. It's great to be back here with all of you. It's my pleasure to announce our opening speaker. She has surfed, snowboarded, lived with remote tribes, and also built a company that got acquired by Google for $450 million US. I guarantee you this is not your average founder story. Please give it up for Victoria Ransom. Good to see you, Victoria. Thank you so much.
Nice to be here. It's my pleasure.
It has been a while since we last talked, and about a year ago, you actually moved from the US, where you lived for many years, to Switzerland.
We did.
How was that moving going for you? What are your first impressions? How did you settle in?
Yeah, we're settling really fast, actually. I love it. The nature here is what first comes to mind. It's just amazing. I'm from New Zealand, so nature is important to me. The fact everything works here is amazing. It's really amazing. And I love that the politics are so boring and stable. I don't even have to read about it. It's possible because I don't read about it that I think it's stable, actually. But no, just this kind of predictability and stability in the world right now is a gift.
You pretty nailed the timing, so to speak,
Yes.
to come here.
Not a coincidence.
Absolutely. Let's talk about your impressive journey of Wildfire. You had a social media management and marketing platform for businesses that you built there. And first of all, you raised 5 to 10 times less funding than your competitors, but you were first equal in terms of revenue, and you had 30,000 paying customers signed up. That's insane. What was the secret product sauce?
I actually would have to say it probably wasn't product. I think we had an excellent product, and you can't have a good company without an excellent product, but our space was so competitive and frankly very easy to replicate product functionality that product alone was not enough. So I would say, first of all, our market was huge, and if you want to grow a really big company, find a huge market. We had good timing. So those were all sort of, headwinds that we had or tailwinds that we had. But that wasn't enough. There was about 100 players in our space in the end. And we did rise to the top. And I'd say it was 3 main things. One, we just executed like crazy. We moved fast, we iterated, we innovated. And I actually think I was a first-time founder, more or less, for something scaling that much. We had a really young, hungry team. And I actually think our naivety helped us because we didn't know what wasn't possible. So that was important. Go-to-market was super important. We built an incredibly efficient, cost-effective sales team, hired really young people, mostly straight out of university, developed a great training program, had the lowest base salary we could legally get away with, and very high commissions. And that was a huge part of our success. And the final thing was our company culture. We had a super hardworking, hungry team that just loved working together, and that helped us move fast. It helped us recruit. It helped us retain people. I think it even helped us win customers because we were kind of a likable company. So that, I think you cannot underestimate culture as a really strong and impossible to replicate competitive advantage.
Let's dive a bit deeper into the culture topic. Until today, many years after you actually sold the company, former employees are still talking on LinkedIn about how amazing the culture was that you built, and they started other companies together, etc. So what is sort of your blueprint? How can the entrepreneurs here in the room today learn on how to build a successful culture that is right for their company?
Yeah, so it's something I love to talk about, culture. The first thing is hire your first 15 to 20 employees super carefully. Like hire them for culture because they will set a lot of the norms in your company. They'll help you recruit the next set of employees. Many of them will probably become leaders in your company. That's what happened to us. As you get bigger, you can absorb some cultural misfits, and it's not dire. But in those first 20 or so, that is where you set the culture. And then beyond that, I would say culture comes from four things. Hiring is the first, so hire for culture. And I think we got really good at identifying who is a good cultural fit. We didn't always get it right. So the second thing that's really important is firing. And it's no fun and you don't want to have to do it often. But if someone is really not a good cultural fit, you need to let them go. And I would say there was a couple of high-profile occasions where we had to do that. Once we pretty much within a week let go of a senior leader in our company who was leading a team of 100 people.
Wow.
Who we discovered was good at culture around the leadership team, not with her own direct reports. And that sends a huge message to the team, like, oh, they're serious about this. It's how you reward and speak to people. And I don't just mean financial reward. It's shouting people out at your all hands. I used to leave Post-it notes on people's desks, just like a little note, like, I saw you doing X, Y, Z. And so if you're talking about it constantly, then people believe it. And then the final thing is you have to walk the walk. If the founders and the leadership team are not exhibiting the culture, then forget it. And that probably brings it full circle that really the culture has to be an embodiment of the values of the founders. And if you come up with a list of values that are not inherent to who you are, it totally will not stick.
It will not feel authentic, I imagine, right?
It won't.
This episode was sponsored by Property, the leading real estate agent for all real estate transactions with a comprehensive ecosystem. They combine highly trained experts with the latest technologies on an intelligent platform to provide clients, brokers, and service partners with risk-free, flexible, and simplified services. Learn more at property.com. That's property with an I.com.
How do you come up with the values? I'm sure you had them implicitly present all the time, but when was the moment when you really started to write them down and to also communicate them to other team members?
It was very late in our company. Like, we had at least 100 employees before we A, hired a head of HR, and B, wrote down our values. And when we did, it felt difficult and kind of awkward. And so what that told me is you can go through these processes of writing down values, and you probably should. We probably should have done that first. And you can put up posters on your walls and in the bathroom. But really, again, it's got to be inherent in who you are, and it's got to be intuitive. So we were intuitively hiring for values and had strong values right from the beginning. It was only later we tried to codify them. So yeah, if it's authentic to you, it'll happen anyway. But probably we should have written them down earlier, just so we really knew.
Well, it worked out just fine.
It worked out okay.
Yeah. Tell me also a bit more about the hiring process, because that's something that is very difficult to execute at the top level, and it can really make or break your company when it comes to culture. Yes. What are your key takeaways or tips on getting hiring right? Because this is still so difficult today.
Well, one thing that I think was critical for us was we had about 50% of our hires came directly through employee referrals. And so we hugely incentivize employee referrals. Directly, we paid bonuses, but we also we had this fun sort of system where you'd get a bonus if we hired someone you referred. But even if someone you referred got an interview, we had this kind of monthly lottery at the all hands, and we had these little takeout boxes, and anyone who'd referred came and took a takeout box and then revealed it in front of the team, and it was anything from an Amazon voucher to a trip to Vegas. So that was critical, because if it's a referral from employees you trust, then you're likely to get someone that fits the culture. Beyond that, we had a fairly large internal recruiting team. Every time we used external recruiters, I'd say it didn't really work out. And we developed ways to really get to know people. So we were hiring a lot of salespeople, like at one point probably 20 a month. And we actually created this whole, it was an entire afternoon that applicants came in, would obviously pre-screen them. They did these team building activities together. They had to stand up and give an impromptu presentation. We did a barbecue afterwards. All of that gave us a lot of insight into who someone was. So
you got to know them from different angles.
Exactly. And watch them working with others. And, yeah.
You also mentioned the incentives. So you rewarded people by handing notes, giving them the spotlight. But what about the financial incentives? To what way do they contribute to a culture or even help you enforce it, if at all?
I definitely think they do. Incentives alone are not enough. We gave options to every single employee. Obviously, for some employees, many employees, it was very small. But that signaled that we're all in this together. If we all work hard together, we're all owners of this company. The sales team I mentioned before, that low base, high commission, really incentivized hungry, scrappy salespeople, and those that weren't making money, they went on to do other things. And then actually, I think our lack of incentives in certain ways reinforced our culture, in that we did not offer the typical Silicon Valley free meals, free massages, free buses. And that's because we hadn't raised much money. But it kind of incentivized this hungry, scrappy kind of vibe. And funnily enough, I think it's a good thing we didn't do that, especially the food, because after we were acquired by Google, it was going to take 5 weeks until we could move to the Google campus. It was very important to Google that they fed our team. So they were every day bringing in free lunches for our team. And about a week after that started, I got a call from someone at Google saying, could you please tell your team to eat a little bit less? We're delivering 2 times the normal allocation of food per person, and you're still running out. So, yeah, that was a little embarrassing, and I was glad we were not paying for it.
That's a really fun story to share. I love that. The options you mentioned, I think that is a big difference. Of course, you also have option plans here in Switzerland, but you basically had almost every employee participated. And that's crazy, because I think that's something that is not the same here in Switzerland. Have you also noticed that by talking to startups, that there's a significant difference between the US and Switzerland in that regard?
I think it is much more standard in Silicon Valley. It's just what happens. You have an option pool, and usually everybody gets options. Realistically, it's very small. By the time you're hiring your 150th salesperson, they're really not getting much in actual fact. But, the team didn't question that. They just valued so much that they had something. So I found it was really motivating and totally worth it. I didn't regret, one option that I gave out, because I think it really did motivate the team.
And they all participated in the very impressive exit to Google for $450 million. Was that always the goal for you, to eventually sell the company, or how do you set yourself up to be acquired?
So I would say, no, it was not the goal. I guess you always have that in the back of your mind. And I think it never really should be the primary goal. You should just be executing, building the best company you can. And so at the time that we got acquired, we were actually talking with bankers about what would it mean to go public. But then there was consolidation that happened in our industry. It happened really fast. And I actually kind of had a learning from that. And that is, although you should never be actively trying to get acquired, you should be thoughtful and proactive about it, in that, when the acquirers came and started talking to us, they were all really surprised by how large we were and how successful we were. And it became pretty apparent that our rather humble approach had meant that we'd flown under the radar. And so it was possible that when consolidation happened, nobody could have bothered to talk with us. Luckily, they did. And so that really made me think, in retrospect, we should have had an idea of who the acquirers were, and we should have made sure they knew how we were doing, whether that's through press coverage that's sort of, vanity metrics, or whether it's through partnership conversations, just to make sure you're on the radar of possible acquirers, I think is important, actually.
The down the radar or below the radar is probably the Swiss DNA in your co-founder relationship.
And it's the New Zealand DNA,
I guess,
too.
yeah.
And it was a learning, because we had a very loud, I would say not at all humble competitor that everyone viewed as by far the biggest winner in our space, and they absolutely were not. In terms of revenues, we were right there with them. So yeah, you shouldn't be too humble, I guess, was one learning.
Hey, did you know that Swisspreneur just published a book? That's right. We've spent the past year writing Swiss Startups, a compact view of some of the most amazing startup journeys in Switzerland, from scrappy beginnings to world domination. If you love listening to our podcast, then this is about to become your new favorite book. Find it now in all major bookstores or click the link in the show notes to order your copy from Helvetic today.
Now, this sort of lets me close the circle. Now you've spent 1 year living in Switzerland. What is a thing that we can learn from the US? And what is one thing that the US ecosystem can learn from the Swiss one?
Probably every country in the world can learn this from the US of just, and especially Silicon Valley, just thinking really big. I think that moonshot mentality in Silicon Valley and having really bold ambitions is super pervasive, and it's supported by a venture capital industry that's really robust, and I think Switzerland can grow in that way. But that's valuable, and even what you said, just don't be too humble. Think big and tell your story and tell it boldly. Look, the US can learn from Switzerland's wonderful stability right now. Infrastructure is such an asset here that is absolutely a disaster in the US. So that there's a lot that I think the US can learn from Switzerland.
Last question for you. Have you had any regrets of moving here to Switzerland 1 year ago?
No regrets.
Happy.
It hasn't always been easy. The weather was hard. January was hard. But no, I do not regret it.
Well, we're really glad to have you back. We could go on probably for another hour, but unfortunately we run out of time. Thank you so much for being here, Victoria.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.